Piyush Pandey from Vanity told me, and I later yesterday, he always says that no one watches a show to watch ads. Few founders realize that great brand building is not just making sure next week's revenue and next month's revenue. It's also making sure that 5 years from now, there is still enough for brand pull. I can even get huge engagement, right? And that number can satisfy my boss and my board. But am I building some long-term trust?
All of us have become slaves of Google, slaves of Meta, slaves of all the other social handles. And it kind of, feels sad, right? We are living in India. We are a young country. Can't we think differently? Can't we create something?
An Apple MacBook is 40% more expensive.
Yes.
Yet a 17-year-old wants to be seen with a MacBook and doesn't find an HP as exciting.
I don't see that trust coming from our clients. So why that trust deficit suddenly?
AI can help solve some of the issues, not all of it. Okay, right? I am very excited about the possibilities of AI in the context of marketing. I think AI can help us do a lot of hyper-personalization at scale. Polar marketeers and always remind themselves, if all the Pepsi and Coke factories shut down in the world.
You have lived in that era of managing Pepsi, HP, Motorola. Can you just share some very powerful things that you learned there? Hi Lloyd, it's such a joy to have you on Confab.
Thank you, Monica.
So what do you think it has changed of late? I see a lot of young marketeers not really getting into understanding the consumer insights from a very deeper lens, stepping out, meeting. They're just glued to their dashboards. I understand data is important, but what is equally important is that how do you interact and understand the actually ground level reality of the entire the journey of the brand.
Sure. So, Monica, I think the making of a good marketer always starts with, and I generally believe this, and I tell a lot of younger people, but to be founders, is to spend a few years in the marketplace. And often that means not starting off in marketing. So, a lot of young people stay at a management school, they think marketing and strategy is the key thing. I always believe that at least 2 or 3 years in sales gives you a good ground. Like, 2 reasons. One, as Indians, I think we're proud that our country is truly diverse, right? So if you're in sales, you'll go around the marketplace, you'll hopefully go to 2 or 3 states, you'll get a sense of what works in the country, right? And, I started back in the late 80s and early 90s. And I think a lot of travel then was real, right? We went to smaller towns, didn't have fancy hotels, there was no limit. We stayed in places like Ratlam. But the idea was, you meet real people, you get real insights. Also, people who tell you like it is, right? It's not filtered feedback.
Yes.
But I do believe that after a few years, when you move to marketing, it's always good to take insights seriously. I see a lot of people who think that they know it all, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And I know young founders who, whose businesses are worth a lot, right? A lot of them, their businesses are worth, at least, in terms of valuation, is $100 million, and they actually feel like it. My belief is that insights will tell you what role a product plays in a customer's lives. And that can give you a lot of things to either improve your product, certainly improve your communication, and also see what you need to change about your approach to the market, right? And also, again, insights in a non-formal way helps. So it's good to do focus groups. It's good to look at research. It's good to have consumer panels. But just seeing how consumers use products is a learning in itself. And a lot of feedback, they say, never comes out of formal surveys. So I'll just do an old story that, in Hindustan Lever that was talked about, was that when Fair and Lovely was launched in the early days, a lot of women never admitted to using Fair and Lovely. It was like, okay, yeah, that's really beautiful. But one part of the whole exercise that they used to use women, researchers, was gain a confidence. So they would always start with a softer topic and ask some basic questions about Lux soap or whatever. And then when you see her dressing drawer, you see a tube of Fair and Lovely, right? So, but people don't want to say some things because, we always have a little bit of posture. Yes. You like to believe that, differently. So I think, yes, insights is important. Insights helps you understand your consumer better and helps you understand your product and make much better communication. So I think a few years in insights and sales is always important to make a great marketer.
So then why is the young marketer today confused about not looking at real consumer insights, but looking at metadata only or Google data only or your LinkedIn data only. Is there a need to calibrate the act somewhere?
I think what's happened, and I would say it's a relative phenomenon in the last 10 years, but accelerated very much more since the pandemic, is that there's a lot of undue pressure being put by founders, by boards on attribution. Well, suddenly marketing is all about attribution. And I think what happens with attribution is the marketeer is under pressure to show metrics. उसको दिखाना है, business is going very well, इस campaign चलाया तो इतनी results आ गई. I think that whole pressure is now pushing the whole focus into numbers, key attribution, I'm a show numbers. With that, what happens is that marketeers are now beginning to say that the more data I get, if this campaign works, can I do more of it? They're looking at tweaking the metrics. I think if I worry, I think the three things that is a big worry. The first I would say is that it's a little bit of a marketing spreadsheet paralysis, right? Because rule number one, you want to show good attribution.
Absolutely.
Campaign mein customer acquisition hogi. So there's a bit of a pressure on that every campaign should work. Two, it's also a little bit of short-termism. Two levels, because campaigns have very short cycle.
Right.
And they go ad chalaya by Tuesday, Wednesday, you want to see kitne customers how much is the business gone up. So I think it's also a kind of a short-termism. And third, what happens is because of a lot of startups having limited runway, funding I can run my company for 2 months, right? So I need to show a big revenue growth because then I get less pressure funding. So there's also a bit of short-termism. What is getting lost in this whole exercise is the fact that truly good marketing has to generate business, has to grow revenue, but has also to build a brand that makes consumers trust and respect your product. And that can come only when you tell a little bit of emotional connect, right? So I can give a price off and I can do a, emergency sale and get some sales. But until I build some trust and regard for my product, I won't build a long-term success. I think that is a little bit of a challenge. And therefore, I believe good marketers have to be able to balance. You have to push back the founders, the promoters, the board, saying that, yes, I will drive sale, but my business is not only driving sale. It's also about building some equity, building some trust, because real marketing is about having a much longer lifespan. If you look at some of the world's great brands or even successful brands or recent past, I think they've all built a certain level of customer trust, right? So I was in this event and spent a fair amount of time with Vijay Shekhar Sharma. And he said, of course, the early days, he said his whole idea was that when someone told him that, Paytm is nothing but a mobile payment system, he said, "Ek din government aa jayega, Paytm will go flat." And he said, I was told by someone I have to make that a verb, Paytm karo, right? And therefore he, built the whole campaign. And he said he spent disproportionately ahead of his revenues.
Absolutely. Yes.
And he said even now he takes great pride. He said even when people are using UPI, which is government, and
Yes.
he said North India, West India, they still stay by Paytm karta hu. Right? So when they say Paytm karta hu, very often they might use a Google Pay, they might use a Phone Pay.
Yes.
But for a lot of people, the verb is Paytm karta hu.
Yes.
Right? So I think therefore the ability, and that is a great strength, right? Where your brand becomes part of people's conversation.
Yes.
You understand this. I think few founders realize that great brand building is not just making sure next week's revenue and next month's revenue. It's also making sure that 5 years from now, there is still enough of brand pull. That's important.
I think very interesting thing that you shared, that how brands, you have lived in that era of managing Pepsi, HP, Motorola. Can you just share some very powerful things that you learned there and which the young marketers today must really implement so that there is that killer marketing campaigns that you used to see again back on the rack?
I would say two things. I think one, we were lucky a little bit in the 90s because media was less fragmented.
Yes.
Surely the challenge is that you can't get half of India's attention.
Yes.
Unless you can spend a lot of money, but that's next to impossible. I think what happened in the 90s was there were fewer channels and you could lock people's attention, right? So ran, fewer campaigns. But the difference is, and when I kind of read marketing at Pepsi in the late 90s, we used to do 2 or 3 big campaigns a year. right? And therefore, and you spend a lot of money behind each campaign. For 4-5 months, you ran it. It was a national television. You bought chunks of media. And therefore, you had 3 to 4 months to plan a great campaign. You researched the idea. You cast some of the best stars. And they ran at least for 6 months to impact. I think today, attention span is so short.
Yes.
You've got to do very short-term campaigns,
Yes.
right? So that's one part. The big learning, specifically in a category like soft drinks, and a lot of us says that selling sugared water is not difficult, but it's also a fundamentally non-essential category.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that cola marketeers and always remind themselves, if all the Pepsi and Coke factories shut down the world won't be a bad place. Right? Reality. So you have to recognize that if you don't create some news and some hangama,
Yes.
it's not big again.
Bilkul.
So the whole idea was to create a lot of excitement. Right? The cola wars,
Yes.
create all kinds. Because the idea was it's an impulse category. And the more I make noise, create something exciting, do a new campaign, use a Sachin, use a Shah Rukh, people are going to excite themselves.
Yes. Yes.
Therefore, a non-essential category teaches you that you have to make news some way or the other. And very often news is about entertaining people, making them laugh, creating some little controversy, doing something interesting, right? So that's the challenge, right? In categories, impulse categories. When you move to categories like Motorola, and HP, and other such like, I think there are different challenges. In the mobile handset space, it started off as a utility, right?
Yes.
But then for a lot of people, handset became a certain style statement, right? Even today, when a guy whips out his iPhone or iPhone 17 or whatever, it's a bit of a statement. I launched a Moto Razr in India. It was a huge style statement.
Yes.
So I think recognizing that people buy for utility, but they also buy to say that this is what the brand is. It tells you a little bit about yourself, right? Everyone. I mean, today women use, men use brands because brands speak for us.
Yes.
They're a small extension of our personalities. So I think the ability to communicate beyond product attributes is a great thing. It's also something that we learned in HP, not very successful, is that people buy a laptop because they need it. And most laptops have the same set of configurations. Some may Intel chip hai.
हाँ बिल्कुल.
Most of them run on Windows operating system. That's common. So finally, we have white box manufacture. All the profit goes to Intel and Microsoft. But they realize that until you build a story around an HP or a Dell or Mac, right? I think people buy into a certain product category. And we used to wonder in HP, why is it that, an Apple MacBook is 40% more expensive?
Yes.
Yet a 17-year-old wants to be seen with a MacBook and doesn't find an HP as exciting, right? And part of it is the fact that Steve Jobs and Apple approach it differently, right? Using an Apple product is a great design product. It also is a good performance product. But it was created very differently. It was not sold as, a good operating system, X amount of RAM, X amount of MB of storage space, this kind of Qualcomm chip. It was never sold as a functional attribute. It was sold also as something that makes you feel good, performs better. So I think therefore recognizing that great marketing can tell a story beyond product attributes, right? People don't buy product attributes. They buy, it's like all the choices we make in life, right? They're not always rational. There's a lot of heart that's involved. I think that's the charm of a good marketer, to recognize that people don't make all decisions from here. Very often it's also the heart that, so you've got to build that mix.
So 3 things the young marketers today should drop instantly to be able to create an impact.
I think one, don't be a pure office animal. Go out there, find the time, right? And I think there's a lot of stories in the market which you got to bring back into your brain, right? It's easy for us to get involved by office mein bahut sara.
हाँ बहुत सारा काम है.
But I think go out there. 2 is recognize that a lot of what you're doing is short-termism, and recognize that build this campaign that I run, will it have any meaning 6 months later, 1 year? So remember that not everything you do has to show results tomorrow. Some things can go
long term.
So you've got to look a little bit of the long term. Third, I would say don't fall for vanity metrics. Vanity metrics have 2 kinds. I think one is we all look at, today it's possible to buy traffic.
Yes.
Right? Today I can buy bots and get huge amount of likes. I can even get huge engagement. Right? And that number can satisfy my boss and my board. But am I building some long-term trust? Right? Recognize that great products are ones which build affinity, build emotion, build trust. Right? So the numbers can give you a small lease of life. I think you have to recognize that you need to build something longer. So I would say short point, spend more time out, meet real people, talk to your users, talk to your customers, you'll get ideas. Two is, don't just chase short-term goals. Look at slightly more detail. And third is, live beyond the spreadsheet. Recognize that vanity metrics are a little bit of illusion. और भी काफी चीज है.
और भी काफी चीजें बड़ो.
Push us beyond.
So one thing that you remember when you managed so many campaigns stayed with you as a marketer. Any big lesson or any big learning, anything that you feel that in your such a big journey that still kind of reinforces as one of the biggest learning?
I would say whenever you're working with creative people, give them the freedom. And I'm putting a little recent story, and this is in the last 3 days in Pune. So on Thursday, I was, doing a session at IMDR with a guy called Prahlad Kakkar, who was a big ad filmmaker. It was a tribute to Piyush Pandey, who passed away in October. And one of the points that Prahlad said, and I worked closely with him, we did, when I was in Pepsi, we did about 15cc, huge campaign. Ye Dil Mange Mo, launch of, a lot of these campaigns, superstars. And what Prahlad valued, and today we recognize that, we said that the client gave us a brief, there was a certain story, but we let a lot of the execution happen with the producer. Right? Now, Prahlad was a director who worked with Shyam Benegal and great stuff.
Yes.
And just yesterday at this communion, did something with Prasun Pandey. And when his point was saying, he said some of Piyush Pandey's best campaigns came from brands like Pidilite, Fevicol, Cadbury, Vodafone. He did some, and Asian Paints, of course. And he said in all the cases, he said there was a deep bond between the brand owners and him, right? So at Asian Paints and all these.
Yes.
And that got built over time. But he said there was a certain trust.
Yes.
कि भाई Piyush Shukla invested अपने brand में शायद हमसे ज़्यादा BR. And he won't do something bad. And now then they all fail, right? So Piyush has created outstanding campaigns for Fevicol, right? We remember a whole bunch of them. And then one could have failed, right? Life होता. But if you trust someone, the creative person, you will hold them accountable. And two is let people tweak changes, right? A creative person knows the film media much better than a client ever. Right? And as clients, because we are paying, we think, boss, the buck stops at, I will decide ki, whatever. And as clients, it's normal, right? The pressure in your company is कि logo ke size बढ़ा दो, pack size hold कर दो और 5 seconds. Life means much more, right? People relate to stories.
Yes.
Right? And, to use a Piyush Pandey, something he told me, and I related yesterday, he always says that as an advertiser, as a marketer, no one watches a show to watch ads.
That's true.
Right? Because watching under to watch the movie, watch the show.
Yes.
No one's there to see the ads. So when a customer gives you 30 seconds of his time, 10 seconds of his time, 60 seconds of his time, reward him. Make it entertaining, make it emotional, give something that he's going to smile at the end of it. All
Yes.
Right? It's no interruption. Interruption won't get you anywhere. Right? Short term, we say, interruptions, ad toko. So his point was reward customers for the intention with something that they can take away and feel happy about. I think that's an important thing. So if I would look back, I would say my biggest, advice or learning would be, don't take yourself too seriously. Understand that creative and good communication is done by creative specialists. Give them broad guidelines. Share with them as much information as you know about your product, as many as the challenges. But let them do a bit of the execution. Chhod do. Give them the freedom. Because creative people can perform best when they know that this guy trusts me and I can do my own stuff. And if I feel proud, some of the great campaigns, I had no role to play, barring being the guy that's saying, okay, go and do your stuff. And 8 times out of 10, you'll do great stuff, right? Well, that's what does happen.
Yes.
But hey, that happens in life.
Yeah. I agree. I completely agree. I also had this opportunity of interacting with Piyush, and I've seen the way he just creates magic, right? One of the brands where I was closely associated, and he used to own that brand completely. He used to write the script, and he used to be passionate, and he used to give blunt feedbacks. So I think, off late what has happened, because now I'm on the other side of story, from being a marketer to creating campaigns or working with brands. I've seen the shift, the trust that I used to put in my partners, my creative partners, the same trust I'm not seeing there. So why this has happened?
like I said, little bit of short-termism is current. But I mean, just, pull one small anecdote when you talked about, how, it's not a Piyush, but like I said, on Prahlad Kakkal, in one of the Pepsi spots we did, this is way back again in the late 90s. There was Sachin, there was Kamri and Azhar and Sand. It was a Pepsi ad. Yes. And how Azhar gets the bottle.
Yes.
So one bottle left.
Right.
And that ad was scripted, and we all approved the script, which said, Sachin celebrates when he digs. He bowls in the next and celebrates. He does this particular thing. And Kamri says, Sachu, ye kya kar rahe ho? And then on the set, someone said, this is not how two Maharashtrian boys talk. In ideal world, what Kamli was telling him is, Kenlia, hey, kai kar do?
Absolutely.
And Prahlad took the call, right? I mean, I don't know.
Creative call.
Someone said, Prahlad baat karna cha raha hai. And he said, look, we want to make this change. Fantastic. And everyone, remember that ad because they said it sounds so spontaneous.
Yes.
It looks like real.
Yes.
Right? It actually looks like you went to MIG or Wankhede Stadium, shot it. Or, to Marathi boy saying, hey, kai kartu? And the rest of the ad plays out and whatever for. So these small tweaks, they add a layer, which you don't realize, right? And you get very cut up and say, no, humne likha tha ki sab. Right? Because you should call him Sachu. I said, in Maharashtra, Sachu for Sachin may not be the right thing. Kendya is how they will call him. And that's apparently how they actually called him. So I said these small things are what gives a lot of value that oftentimes we don't see it from our elevated purchase. Sorry, I digress from what is your main question?
I'm saying the way you trusted your partners, I don't see that trust coming from our clients. So why that trust deficit suddenly?
Monica, I would say that there is a trust deficit, you're right. I think it's because two changes. I think one is marketing per se has become transactional, right? And I would blame companies and startups and founders for that process because everyone's shopping for creative. Either campaign isse chala do, us campaign usse le lo, right? So it's literally like you're going to the shop and trying to get the best deal, right? And everyone can give you a one-off campaign. But I think good marketing has to be built slightly over time, build relationship that you can't keep shopping. So that trust part has gone. Two is a lot more short-termism, not always to blame outsiders. I think the world has changed. I think attention spans are shorter. Right? Everyone will tell you that, an average 16-year-old has 6 seconds. 6 seconds with product stories. Some things are not possible. Right? And I still believe that when you emotionally hook someone, he will give you enough.
Absolutely.
Right? So there are
That's true.
lovely 30 and 60 and 90 seconders that work, but if people love it.
Yes.
Right? Not so long ago, but there was a great Google reunion ad, which is a 3.
Oh, wow. That's
classic, right? So it's about younger and meets all a marketer's dream.
Yes.
The brief from Google was the young girl uses search. Then they use maps to get the house. So sab kuch hai usme. But it's a long story that tells the story of two Dadaji and his friend in Pakistan who remember time pre-partition.
Yes.
Everyone watches it.
Yeah.
Like I showed it in the same camp.
I saw it today. In fact, I was briefing our team about this only.
So I added to this IMRD at IMDR. There were youngsters like two eyes, one voice. And then it was just a beautiful story, right? Which told the product story. So I think necessarily saying that because people's attention spans are shrunk, my ad should become 5 seconds or 5 seconds where 3 baar product ka logo thoko, I think is a little going overboard. So you will recognize that at some level we are humans. We crave emotion. We crave humor. Give that to them and give it nicely. And don't force your product in, right? If people like what you're telling them, they will listen long enough. I think that's one part. The second, and I'm sure you're still advising that, is that are we over-dependent on a lot of vanity metrics, including influencers?
Yes,
right? And that is scary, right? Some part of influencers good. Influence, to my mind, is the ultimate what about. But chasing those mega 1 million type influencers, I think one has to look beyond those numbers. Don't just blindly trust and don't use influencers because you want numbers and you want great likes and engagement. I think see the quality of the engagement, not just the numbers. So that vanity metrics has to be probed into and spend more time. Like I said, again, that's a good idea is when you talk to real people and get a sense. Right? Don't just look at spreadsheets. Marketing is beyond, great spreadsheets and great vanity metrics.
So has very interesting say here. So has marketing now become marketing is equal to performance marketing is equal to social media marketing is equal to search engine optimization, because that's how intrinsically everyone is looking at marketing. So how do we kind of remove this kind of a bias that's existing nowadays, that marketing is not holistic. It's very, very specific to a particular kind of a performance that you need to.
Monica, you're bang on. I think a lot of marketing is unfortunately become entirely performance marketing, search engine optimization. I think it's very attribution-led. I think to some level, attribution is a mirage. Let me give you an example, class. It's very easy to measure attribution by saying, इसने Google पे ये click किया and 1 hour later he bought something.
Yes.
Easy. But attributing that entire transaction to the last transaction with Google is unfair.
Yes.
Because the same person may have heard a podcast 3 weeks back where somebody spoke about this product.
Yes.
4 days ago.
Huh?
A week earlier, he saw a friend using that product. So what's the on the thing? Maybe when he was scrolling on his way in the metro to the office, he saw a Reddit post. Now, all these three things, which to 80-90% made up his mind, is ignored. Aapne attribution mein, you're given Google the full credit. Right? And therefore, I think until you're able to tell your superiors that attribution sometimes gives you a false metric, right? Don't just jump at that. Understand the process that humans are complex, right? It's easy to attribute a Google search or the last click.
Yes.
Captures the last click attribution.
Yes.
But understanding the journey takes a lot more. And therefore, did you recognize that people behave in more complex behaviors? Don't just jump at it. So one is question this whole attribution build-up, right? So you will suddenly get a lot of clicks because suddenly you do a big search or search engine drive, or you do some tactical campaigns. But a lot of build-up has happened over time, and they're not able to measure all of that. So I think that's one recognition. The second, I think, is to, for every marketer to spend some time with his founders or, whoever your business drivers are, maybe the board of directors, is to explain that not every rupee spent will be resulting in a sale. It's easy to believe that that's short term, but you could have huge engagement which you bought. You can have a lot of short term controversy, Twitter, you get a big jump, or you can get a big millionaire, a million influencer, person who puts a post and gets something. But is it building trust, and is it building regard? Is it building some love for your brand? So if you're not able to bring that in, I think it'll. So you have to tell people that don't just hold me to the one metric he said, right? So we all talk of bottom of the funnel.
Yes.
Right? Top funnel to ho hi jayega. The reality is you have to, in the top funnel, you have to bring enough of love, enough of regard for your brand, so that converts into it. Right? The second part, which I think marketers don't focus enough, is a little bit of the post-purchase period. Right? Your best influencers are people who use your product and spontaneously talk about it.
Yes.
Not all of them have 10,000 followers on Instagram.
Yes.
But you tell two people, I tried this product, it was fantastic. I mean, that's great. Right? So make sure you capture real brand experiences. Make sure you're listening deeply, not just to listening tools, but listening to what consumers say. Now and then encourage them to say a good thing. Right? One of the things that we used to put a lot of people in HP2 was two things. I mean, the one was saying that even if you don't have time to go out and meet real customers, we used to mandate that a lot of our sales and marketing people spent at least an hour or two listening. You don't have any perception rights to the call center.
Yes.
A guy who spends 6,000 rupees buying a brand new HP printer, or उसकी पहले 2-3 print में कुछ दिख गया है.
हाँ, बिल्कुल.
और बेकार में, very often you get that one color page. You say, boss,
Yes.
10% of my ink has just gone. I mean, those people are calling back saying, boss, I don't like your machine. I mean, you're going to hear them, right?
Yes.
Somebody spent real by it.
Yeah.
And this is something more research report will give you. Right? So most people used to spend 1 hour a month listening to the call center, and actually they say, wow, we believe we run this world's largest selling PC company, world's largest printer company. Log to gaali de rahe. So I think the recognition that, you get real feedback. So I think now and then you have to move out of that zone, my favorite pet theme, and therefore try and integrate, try and understand what are the product shortcomings, because these are things that once you address. Anyway, so the reason I told you the episode is, one is to get feedback, but two is very often if somebody had a problem with his printer and you resolve it quick, it's a good time to tap that consumer for some positive feedback.
Yeah.
So right, so if someone has cribbed on Twitter, he boss, FP ka filter bakwas hai, and you solve the problem. What have you done?
Yeah.
You give him a new cartridge. Encourage him to put that little positive thing saying, wow, it's not just top class.
Yeah.
I know, but they replaced it very well. People give a lot of credence to that feedback, right? So a lot of great brands, they do a lot of post-purchase. How do I? Because a consumer who cribs is by nature a consumer who goes out there and speaks his mind. He can also say good things as long as you do the right kind, provide the right stimulus.
Right.
So I think that is a good balance. And therefore, I always tell marketers, look at influence more than hiring this 1 million influence. And just to tell you how influence can go wrong, we'll have, this time I have invested in a company that does analytics. I mean, they went to one of the largest cosmetic brands in this country. And this cosmetic brand had a tab with 20 influencers, out of which about at least 15 of them and more than 1 million followers.
Okay.
Right? This is a cosmetic brand.
Yeah.
And these are, 1 million plus popular lady influencers. Not movie stars, but,
generally they have their clout, right?
And he did a deep analysis. This is true. About 70% of his lady influencers, they are following us male. Right? Now, I'm saying Indian males are not so world. Not all Indian males buy cosmetics for their wives. But so obviously the males are going for entirely different things.
Entertainment. Yeah.
Right? So first question that the had to ask is, why are we paying the full value, right? You're paying for the so-called 1 million influencers, 70% of IC.
Yes.
Out of the 30% deeper analysis, a lot of them are not from India. Or Ukraine shape.
Yeah.
So finally you recognize that there's a core following which is chota tha. Now, are you going to pay this influencer for 1 million followers for effectively at best 20,000 real women who might be watching their cosmetic choosing skills? Or would you rather go, and I'm not using it disparagingly, to a housewife in a town like Madurai who has 2,000
followers,
but
the community
talks about this.
People listen.
Kajal that he's using. People say, "Oh, dil se bola." And I think therefore the idea is to try and back real influencers. Real influencers, it's effort. It's bigger effort, but the return is immensely more and a lot more credible. And amplify that, right? So when a housewife from a small town in Madurai is giving your Kajal pencil or whatever a big thumbs up, I mean, you can spread that, right? You can use that in some of your social media and such like, and make her a superstar. That is going to give you much better feedback than, well-known Miss XYZ who's got 1.5 million followers, just say, 1.3 million are males and, another 100,000 are from, Uzbekistan, right? That's something that I always remind people.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because, now everything, as you rightly said, is influencer driven. The first thing that marketers start thinking, okay, how do I get the influencers? How do I do the performance? And how do I do the search engine?
What happens is that it's very easy for him to do that PowerPoint chart to his boss. Is campaign and we got X amount of likes. Right? So we ran this campaign and I got X amount of likes. The engagement will get. How many of these became real customers? That was the question. That's always a deeper question.
Yes.
Right? Because the likes are easy. Right? I'm saying like, because lady puts a post. I mean, a lot of males will say lovely. But lesser she wears whatever. Most Porsche. So it's a dangerous arena. Right? A lot of influencers also have learned to game the system.
Yes.
Right? They just know how to, get more followers. Right? So I think to understand the dynamic is a little better. And also not guilty. I would speak for a lot of people I know in the marketing space. There also is a bit of an understanding gap, right? Never speak for at least a set of companies I know well. A lot of CMOs of large companies tend to be in their 40s and mid-40s.
Yes.
Right? Well, nothing wrong. We've all been there. But I mean, how well do you understand Snapchat? How well do you understand Instagram? Right? It's not the same way that a 17-year-old or a 19-year-old gets it.
Yes.
Right? So I think you have to recognize that it's not my pay grade. It's not my skill. Right? So go to somebody else.
Yes.
Right? Of course, I always encourage marketers that try and get into all social media yourself. Nothing like understanding a media from an insight perspective. Right? Until you use Insta, you'll never understand some of the dynamics.
Right.
But you'll never get as good as you're not a digital native.
Yes.
Right? So therefore, understand that different platforms have their own metrics. Like I said, go to the specialist. Understand.
Yes. Absolutely.
That was
no, but this is actually the context. We are in 40s. I remember when I used to plan for my campaigns in my 30s, the context used to be very different. The presentations were very different. We used to have the clear understanding ATL, BTL. Okay. And ATL, I know I have to do everything which is one touch, many touch points. And then you have BTL, where you're actually doing lot of in-person connect, which is creating that last mile conversion and last mile impact. But I think now when we are looking at this entire attribution-led model, where vanity metrics has become important, where virality has become very important. मेरा किसी तरीके से कंटेंट वायरल करवा दो, किसी तरीके से वो एक टिपिकल फॉर्मेट है कि नेगेटिव पीआर करा दो या आप कंट्रोवर्सी घुसा दो एड में, तो वो चार्ट्स में दिखने लग जाएगा, ओवरनाइट कुछ स्पाइक दिख जाएगी सेल में, and that is how everything will kind of become doable, and everything will be looked from that attribution-led lens. So in this short-lived space, obviously then, we are not creating marketers who can think for long term, because they are thinking today, they are very tactical. So how does such a marketer become very strategic, looks at marketing from a very deeper lens and understands that marketing is long term as well as short term? So both have to be kind of managed. So how does, because I also interact with so many marketers, I see that depth missing. So how do we create that kind of an ecosystem where we are able to get the right marketing mix, and having the right marketers creating the right marketing mix and strategies, where as the end user we are seeing real value in the product?
Great question, Monica. And I would say it's not an easy task.
Absolutely.
Like
I know that.
One of the most popular asks by marketers to agencies today is, मेरा campaign viral करा दो.
हाँ,
Right.
बिल्कुल viral करा दो.
And I think therefore it's a larger issue. One is the marketer needs to be kind of build his confidence, saying that you look at your job more than in the short term. Two is, I think it requires some evangelization among promoters, among founders, among business owners that learn to build enduring businesses, right? I do recognize the world has become short term.
Yes.
I'm told that the average tenure of a Fortune 500 CEO has now become less than 2.5 years.
Yes.
Right? There were large companies that had CEOs 10, 12 years. So, investors are getting impatient.
Yes.
Every quarter determines your future.
Yes.
But I think people who take the time to understand the medium, understand their role, and then try and bring to their superiors and decision makers the importance of slightly more long-termism, I think they will have success in the long run, right? It's not something that will dawn overnight. But I think smarter companies, smarter businesses are beginning to slowly recognize that, right? Saying that spend as much time as possible in the marketplace, give the creative freedom to your agencies, build relationships that will go longer term, right? Don't shop campaign to campaign.
Absolutely.
Every fortnight, every month to
Yes.
job.
Yep.
Two is get your creative people and agency people to understand your business as well as you do, right? So bring them into some of your decisions.
Absolutely.
Some of their thinking. So I think some part is evangelization. Some part is realization that a lot of great short-term companies that run well have collapsed and gone.
Yes.
Right? A lot of money got burnt and these businesses have disappeared. Right? Say Byju's is a recently.
Yes, absolutely.
Quite a few of them.
Right.
I think the idea is to recognize that whatever you do should have a little bit of a legacy. One of the best questions to ask yourself is this campaign I'm doing, will it be relevant 1 year from now? Will people talk about it? Yes, I do concede that the era of building great campaign lines like Ye Dil Mange Board and some pieces have gone, right? Because they had a lot of canvas.
Yes.
But even now, there are campaigns that stand the test of time. People still look back and figure smart. And secondly, often try and own a certain theme, right? When people talk of Farikor ka jod is rishta jaisa hai. Yeah. People remember it. Right? Yeah. Har ghar kuch kehta hai. I did to mention which brand kuch khas hai. People get these connections. So I think recognize that sometimes great lines work forever. And the kind of returns they give you is enormous, right? And it's very often that little sound that triggers, right? Today, when you hear that particular Titan tune, Titan ki yadein aa jat. So I'm saying recognize that lots of great brands and campaigns are built over keeping one consistent theme. It's not that Titan has used that particular deal for all its ads, but it's now become part of the property. So build certain properties. And that will only come when you build a slightly longer term relationship with your creative. You do something consistently. But also go out and keep getting feedback. Don't get locked in the world of your own. Right. And I keep saying it, and not just in the context of marketing, I keep saying it to a lot of the founders, is that yes, your product is important. Yes, it's good to spend as much time, but also go out and get some real time in the real world, right? There is a world outside of business and your product, right? And I also believe that the most successful people do a good balance between life, right? You can't be the world's most successful person living 24/7 in your office. Yes, I could go out, get a life, do fun things, take some time off. That's going to enrich you as a business person, as a professional, and as an individual. So I think that makes it important.
Right. Quite interesting. So of late, when I interact with a lot of marketeers or my buddies, so I get to hear this quite often, that all of us have become slaves of Google, slaves of Meta, slaves of all the other social handles. And it kind of, feels sad, right? We are living in India. We are a young country. Can't we think differently? Can't we create something which is our own, which is our native, and which is creating that impact? Because we are a different country. Meta can't think like Indians. Google can't think like Indians. We are an emotion-driven country. Emotions are important for us. So how do we kind of create something? Can we think out of the box? This is something I've been hearing quite often.
Great point. I think and what you mentioned is very important, more than just the context of marketing, is the recognition that, I mean, as India is more than a continent.
Absolutely.
Right. And, I'll give one interesting example. In my SP role, I spent many years in Singapore. And I used to wonder that why are all media heads Indians?
Yes.
This is in Singapore. And Singapore serves a lot of Indian markets.
Yes.
And I remember the head of the largest media company then, WPP Media, or Group M, as it was called, he told me, he said, an average media planner in India who spent 2 years, he learns how to plan for a state, right? So we tell him that this campaign Maharashtra mein chahana hai. He will say Western Maharashtra, I will take Sakal in Pune, I will take, Pudhari in Kolhapur.
Yes.
When I go towards Nagpur, I have to take Hitwad.
Yes.
When I go to Central Maharashtra, I will use Lokmat, right? So he will immediately know that Maharashtra ke andar hi, just in print tarah so. Yes. Abhi channel bhi lena hai, to I might have to use a more Hindi Marathi mix in Bombay. I might take a more Marathi centric cab channel, right? So he said in one state. And he said an average guy for 2 years, he will know how to plan. Wahi better. He will do Tamil Nadu mein, there are this bifurcations, Santari hai, Bengal mein Anand Bazar Patrika hai, etc., etc. And he said most of the marketeers in Asia, Singapore, Australia and all, their country has like 3 newspapers and 2 TV channels. He said the more tell them ki itna variable hai to, we said as Indians, we can think complex because we recognize, and as say very often in India, it's like every 100 kilometers the rules change. Yes. The language changes, tech will change, habits change. So I think one is, I don't think we use the diversity well to our marketing. And that brings me to the second part of it, of which I believe is that I think AI can help solve some of the issues, not all of it. Okay. Right? I am very excited about the possibilities of AI in the context of marketing. I think AI can help us do a lot of hyper personalization at scale.
Okay.
So I can take the same campaign and I can serve 5 different sets of audiences with shorter tweaks. I'll know that you like this aspect of the campaign, so I can add up the emotion. Maybe he likes less of emotion, but he likes a lot more of, maybe he likes a speeding car going through or wherever. So I think you can play on some variables. Right? Earlier, you could only use that in terms of targeting.
Yes.
Right? I'm going to show a guy something which is more sports-led, and I can show him one which is more rom-com-led. Yeah. But now you can even tweak creative. You can even design your creative keeping different audiences in mind. And you can create regional variances. You know that what works in a big city like Mumbai, Delhi, you might take a slightly different when you go to a tier 3 town. Right? So I think AI could give us a lot of that possibilities. But again, the challenge I always believe is that not to lose control of what humans should do. So judgment, emotion, ethics are still very human things. But hyper-personalization at scale, creating more customized campaigns, getting deep insights and intelligence from data AI can do much better than any humans, right? 10 researchers spending 20 days going through all data will not give you. AI will give it to you at one step. So I think that is going to be one big disruption. But again, I would say don't leave it all to AI. AI is not this, one jadoo that's sort of...
That's a common perception now. Yeah.
You have to work with it.
Yeah.
But good to understand, good to immerse yourself, dive deeper. I try and spend a lot of time, understanding. Hey, do use AI, but recognize that there are things that it does exceedingly well. And there are things that you still have to catch up yourself. And you can give me a summary. I mean, a small thing I use very often is that you get this, before a board meeting, you get 350 pages of, company secretary, 2 din pehle bhi. Ideally, it's was in 7 days in advance.
Yes.
350 pages for a board meeting. Every over.
Well,
Right? Now, the shortcut is that you can actually load it on the GPT with appropriate permissions, and you can get a nice 3-page extract.
Yeah.
It'll give you a good update.
Yeah.
You can even tell ChatGPT, give me 4 things about the numbers that are concerning.
Yes.
Right? So you can sound like the smart man in the room. But I think therefore it can do some grunge work. So as long as you outsource the the bad stuff to AI, you're good. Don't take away what you should be doing. They say the best thing you can say about AI is that it's like outsource all the grunge work. Let it do all the, house cleaning, whatever. But you still take the stuff that you can enjoy. AI should make more free time for us to do things that everyone's love to do, watch stuff, spend time with our families, have fun, make decisions, decide on the ethics. But let it do a lot of the routine stuff. That's where we should be ending up.
That's interesting. That kind of gives me some kind of an input for our next set of questions, which are around AI, because AI has been debated and discussed quite often, and we have had many interesting podcasts on AI. So I want to understand, as we're evolving, and I see a lot of youngsters using AI so brilliantly. So what's going to happen, say, 2 years down the line, when actually our dependencies on AI are increasingly going to, increase? So how does that human intellect still play that key role? And how does one decide that, okay, I am still inert, my intellect is still inert, it's not influenced by AI? So how does that decision making actually happen? How does one really understand, okay, I am not getting influenced by AI, I am still thinking original?
So I think one is, most of us have to disregard a fear of AI. The other approaches to AI, talking,
That's a common thing.
accept it. It's the reality, right?
Yes.
Let me share. I'll give to some areas. I think out in school we were forced to use log tables, right? A lot of guests don't know what it's like.
Yes.
Then it was a ban. I mean, after they banned using scientific calculus.
Yes.
Right? Then scientific calculus became a law. I mean, today kids don't know what log tables are, mostly don't know scientific calculator, but they're not less intelligent. And so I do believe that every technology, people grow up to the next level. There's one common joke that you keep hearing is that, with increased use of GPS, will the next generation of kids even know how to go across the road? That's fine.
Oh, yes.
They will possibly liberate more brain cells to do
Yes.
other better tasks. Right. So not to fear the fact. But I think to keep a balance of two things. One is try not to let AI outsource the thinking, right? Let it do a lot of the basic work. If you want to write a good summary for something, let AI do it.
Right.
But at least learn to say that these are what I want. This is my little... Spend those 2 minutes to... Like I said, the smartest thinking now is about the
Prompt. And I was about to ask.
smartest prompt.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm trying to understand a little bit of, I'm not saying prompt engineering, but understanding that how do I make a prompt more relevant to it, right? I also try to the extent possible of looking at that whole output and saying, can I sharpen it? This is right. I can go back to AI and say, look, I died slightly, I want this diagram or whatever. So I think one is to engage and spend time, immerse yourself, but don't lose track of it, right? Don't, use AI as a dumb business tool. Use it as you would if you had an active executive assistant, and you will guide that person with them, do something. You will say, this is right, this is wrong. So he becomes better over time, which is what good AI will be. So I think that's one part. The second, I think, is the recognition that there are a lot of tasks AI can do better than us, right? So like I said, planning for a, hyper-personalization, working out a more media plan, telling me this is my campaign, how can I get a 10% better audience? क्या ट्री करना है, right? Either creatively or in terms of media. What is that I'm not doing well? Go back to your blast fine campaigns and ask AI to make a deep critique. क्या सही हुआ, what? So it can give a lot of richer analytics, you can get a deeper sense of intelligence without having to waste your time or your colleagues' time, and try and look at how it can enrich the entire process. So I would say adopt, accept, live with it, work, try to become sharper, but don't outsource the key elements. Two is recognize that AI as yet, and I'm not discounting it in the future, may not be so good in terms of generating heart-wrenching content, right? When it comes to emotion and such like, for now, at least humans will, right? Yes, AI can write a great romantic novel, right? AI can write a tearjerker. But I think contextualizing it, right? Bringing something of the current world, right? Like, I'm just saying, if I were writing a story for a context of where we are in, how do I bring a little bit of the local flavor, right? And that is important. And I think that's something that we should always keep in mind, right? And I just, again, bring a small example. It was like, yesterday at this communion, there was a discussion with Indranil Chitle of the Chitle Bandhu, right? He's third generation. And he was saying that one part of what his business has done well, right? So they're one of the few family-run kind of food shops that have done well, what third generation, like, the Mayas, MTR in Karnataka. He said, what part is that people buy a food because of they like the taste.
Yes.
Now, how do I scale it up? Right? He said, some things you can't take away. For a lot of people, Chitle Bandhu was a little nostalgia. Dubai bhi jate hain, US bhi aate hain, to,
they carry their stuff.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. But he said, two is I have to now improve my supply chain. I have to make my products clean, modern, etc. I have to also retain some of the
essence.
Nostalgia. Right? It's not I can make it CB and sell it to 50 countries.
Yes.
Right? He said, I can't. It's not something. Right? It's not like making the McDonald's out of Tululu. Right? So the connection to Pune, to the family, to the story, the Bakarwadi, I think that's part of the whole aura. Right? I mean, a Chitle Bandhu burger won't sound authentic. Right? So they have to recognize that. So the idea is to keep that balance. Right? So, and I think he said it very well. It's about keep the good and see what are the parts that
can be automated.
Supply chain, hygiene, factories, all that can be automated.
Do you think there needs to be some change in the way the B schools or the communication schools are teaching nowadays? Because there is intrinsically so much focus on only prompt engineering or how AI has to be used, that the fair mix has to be taught, where AI as a tool becomes an enabler, but at the same time, you're not losing your human instinct and not becoming robots in the long run.
Yeah, like I said, difficult for schools to teach it. I think, like I said, learning AI is best taught by diving into it, right? Like, for example, let's say, early days yet, but a lot of us are familiar with ChatGPT.
Yes.
So a lot of people are getting to Google Gemini. I discovered recently, Perplexity, of course, is there.
Yes.
I discovered also the value of things like Gamma AI, right?
Yes.
You can generate powerful PowerPoint, right? I mean, I spent a whole lifetime spending PowerPoint, making PowerPoint. So, yes, adopt, but don't let it take over your life. Retain the balance. Like, I always believe that you can never outsource thinking, right? You still have to process some of it yourself. But, ideally it should. Like, it's the equivalent of trying to say that, during the pandemic, a lot of us, bought Zoom masks.
Yes.
Right? Ghar saaf ho jayega.
Yes.
Good. Right? A lot of us don't use it. I don't know where the Zoom houses. And neither is my wife. But I guess in India, we have relatively cheap labor. But we also discovered some good things. For example, Lisa, our family together, we tried to cook some new items that we hadn't done. Because earlier, the whole thing was kind of outsourced. So we had somebody who came and cooked for us. So I think, like I said, learn to bring the balance in. Right? It's easy to replace one entirely. But I think until you discover the things, and as you do it, you discover so much more, right? I mean, my wife discovered a few dishes that she kind of done when she was much younger. So I think it's the part of, integrating, making sure that, you get both ends right.
Right, quite interesting. So 3 things that all of us must do as human beings to be better listeners, better executors in the world, which is increasingly becoming complex and very, very agile?
I think, like I said, live a lot of our lives out there. We're increasingly getting gadgetized.
Yes.
I'll be very honest. I think you walk into any room, any hall, you look at any traffic signal, 80% of the time with the people out there. I think there's no going away from the fact, and that's recognized. But I would say try and draw balance. Tell you at least mentally say 20% of my time is going to be with real people, with real friends, the real world. Uh, one of that I do say meet at least 3 people in person every week, right? Which means going out. It's outside your echo chamber, outside your comfort zone, but meeting real people, right? And we know what it means because there's a time at least for 6 months in 2020, another 4-5 months in 2021, where you never met anyone outside your family, right? So I would say one is it's a human thing, but there's no there's no substitute for that. I think that's one aspect I will always say. Third is second, I would say is also get a lot of external stimuli, whether you're in the business world, which most of us are, or wherever else you are. I think it's reading and understanding things quite a bit, right? So the more amount of time it takes, and this is not just business reading, right? It could be watching things, documentaries, watching movies, entertaining yourself. But getting outside influence is pretty good, right? Because I do believe that over time, we become self-echo chambers, right? You meet people like yourselves and such like. So I want to say that part is always good. And third, which is an extension of these parts that I would always recommend people, especially as you go older, is to try and take on something new, right? Depends on which stage in life. I know, I try and do something new every year. I think I never done before.
Right.
You never tried bungee jumping or you never tried, hiking or whatever it is. But I think always push your limits, learn a new language, right? Learn a new skill.
Yes.
Right. And I always believe that they teach you a lot about yourself than you otherwise would know, right? Until you do something new. Because I believe that the steep learning curve is the same between 15 and 25, right? Between your high school and college and first job, you learn a lot. And then most of our people lives then become roughly good. Of course, we might grow, but very often we grow by doing the same thing better. I think ideas to do newer things is important. I believe the most creative and successful people, they reinvent, right? A lot of our success movie stars or whatever is their ability that at every stage they reinvent. I mean, Mr. Bachchan's story is well known, but he was a great actor. He went through a health issue, came out of it. He tried his hand at business. He failed badly in this year. He came out of it. He had a disastrous political career. He came out of it, right? 80 plus, and he's still where he is. So the ability to stand up, I think, is a great story. And I think a lot of people have reinvented. When I was a Pepsi, we'd signed, Virat Kohli. A lot of people thought he's brash, aggressive, one of those, everything negative. And a few years later, we realized that he reinvented himself. He became a very fit guy. He became far more conscious. At one point in time, he foreclosed his Pepsi contract because he believed it was not standing for an issue. He did things which were completely unlike, what people thought, right? When Anushka was delivering a baby, he opted out of a tour, right? Which a lot of people said, boss, this is no cricket alike, which is a good thing to do, right? So the fact that he recognized and, whatever, maybe he matured enough, I think for months, he's still successful in, So I see a lot of, very successful people, and, I know cricket is an easy metaphor, but, him or even Charo, I think the ability to reinvent oneself, do things. And that will come only when you push yourself, right? As human beings, we are happy to settle in a comfortable, straight road.
Yes.
Until you take those forced lefts and you go off the beaten path, you'll never learn. I always believe that find new things, do things differently, meet different people, and go out there and spend time. Don't get bogged into your here and now.
So, given a choice, if you have to choose between two, data and real execution, what will be your first preference?
I think there's no substitute for good execution. Go out there and do. But try and look at, how successful that has been. Do a little type of analysis. Like I said, if I were to divide like about 1 or 2, I would say 80% should be go out and do. Right? 5 or 6 or 7 out of 10 times you may be wrong. But even the 3 times you succeed is well worth it. So have a bias for doing, but do spend some time analyze it. It's like, they say a favorite thing is that sharpen your saw all the time. Right? You might use it once or twice.
Yes.
I think keep that process going. Or the very famous one that was said that, during a stormy sea, fishermen get their nets in order.
Yes.
I would say keep the balance, but always go out and do it. Execution is most important, even when you're not fully sure. And it's also, I would say, like a management mantra is that don't wait to get all the data right before you execute. I mean, like,
Time निकल जाएगा.
and I met one great such person, sorry, come back, but an old friend, but what Vijay Shekhar Sharma said, very response in time, people said, "Dhanna band ho jayega. MPC aa gaya, game khatam." Said, I'm still rolling with the punches.
Yes.
But he said, just go out and do. I believe that.
Yeah. There were so many memes when they had their public listing.
Doing it.
Thap ho gaya, then the graph went down. Again, there were news that someone is going to take over. But look at them, how they reinvented. Each time when they went down, they rebounded. So I think it's all because of the sheer the market work they must be doing and staying relevant at every time.
Yeah, like therefore I say that good business people or good founders, their ability to read back themselves. I'll give you one example of the COVID. One of the companies that I had an investment with, they were like a Oyo version.
Yes.
Based in Gurgaon. Now, the story in NCR and Gurgaon is that a lot of people own houses. They are in NRIs or live in different cities, which they give out. So, there was this bunch of young people, I was involved with some degree of their early funding. Their model is very simple, that they will do a much, much low cost WeWork. Okay. Right? And their funders, they had leased about 60 or 70 of these independent houses, each of which has about 8 rooms. And they would convert each room into about a workstation of 4 people. Right? And they have a caretaker there and a coffee vending machine and a free Wi-Fi. And their prices were roughly 1/4 of WeWork. Right? And in Gurgaon, there are lots of they had a good business. From 1 or 2 years, they did very well, quite rapidly. And their whole thing was small format WeWork. It's not a body building. You don't have all the fancy asset shares and all that. We have a working
ecosystem,
etc., etc. Do your stuff. Did well. And then March 2020 happened and COVID, and there they were. I mean, a lot of the leases they do are at least 1 2 year leases. Can't, whatever. So for 1 week, we didn't hear. And I remember a lot of us investors got on a call and said, boss, this business ko write off karna padega. And about, say, 1st to April, these 3 founders, they got together and said, we've got a new idea. And they told something, and every one of them said, boss, this company is blessed in, whatever, we made the money. They realized that COVID everything was come to a halt. The only people who were asked to work were the healthcare people. Doctors.
Yeah, right. So true.
Mapped all their places and they talked to, I'm talking of Gurgaon NCR because that's where I belong, Medanta, etc. And they contacted them and said, our places are now available for stays so that your nurses and paramedical staff and housekeeping staff and even doctors don't have to
travel so much.
Metro thing band hai. But you guys have to come and do a sanitization. Right? So all the hospitals, I won't mention all the big groups.
Yes,
right? So a lot of them said good. Yeah, because we are looking for nearby. So a lot of their places became now residences for medical staff. And because they were supporting that, the doctors, the hospitals arranged for those special emergency stickers. So out of about 60, 70 leases, about 40 now became fully productive, fully booked by medical staff, largely by their large hospital chains. All this in 3 weeks. Because their first impulse was, Danda is gone. There we are.
Yes,
Go back.
absolutely.
Lifts up. And then in 3 weeks, it became a big hit. And they did survive and did well and whatever. So, whatever. So again, it's this ability to realize that world is not over and just to rethink.
Yeah.
Right? So reinvention is the name of the game.
Right.
So, and one which was not invested in, but I know of a equally success was this, again, a bunch of guys. They created a startup after COVID, which did well and got sold to one of the big edtech companies, which was recognizing that 99% of teachers had never taught online. Right? So teaching at class 4, class 5, class 6. Right? At least corporate slaves, we use Zoom and we use Teams, whatever. Now for a teacher who's used to a whole life on a blackboard with 30 students, now to see
such a small,
and also to engage kids.
Yes, very difficult. Yes, this track.
So they created a small startup teaching teachers in some of the good schools at Delhi NCR how to conduct online classes, right?
Just
Able to engage, right? So after every time you're asking a question, first choose boy number 2, then go to boy number 4, whatever, and ask questions. So you say, okay, now Alok, you didn't answer. So all the kids know ki boss attention to karna hai. Kids are too smart, right?
Yes.
Wi-Fi theek nahi hai. They used to, so in no time, all the schools running up, because I'm not being cheeky, but the average teacher is 40, 50 years old. Like for a lot of them, it was like, Zoom start kaise karna hai, how do you do it?
Yes,
Right?
I know.
Second part is how do I conduct classroom, and write things up.
Yes.
Third is how do I get people's attention, right? And how do I prevent, and I know it's a funny story, but how do I prevent a clever 12-year-old from tricking me? Well, if give a question when someone asked me, when a teacher asked a kid a question and he opened his mouth and stopped. And he had got ki Wi-Fi band hai until his dog walked in the background. So kids are smart, right? So this startup did well. So they created a quick working model in 6 months of teaching online students. They had a network of 9 of them that was to conduct about 8 classes a day. Subah X school, afternoon Y school, and so on. And all the teachers were saying, what's it?
This is all about reinvention, right?
So ability to be agile, to reinvent, and to never take a thing for granted.
That's how we will create an ecosystem which will be powerful, which will be impact-driven, result-oriented.
And which will derive value, right? Because, I just give you a sense that I know a lot of investors saying, these guys know how to survive.
Yes.
Right? And a lot of businesses' success is survival. Right? Because you have great years when there's more demand, and then you'll have years when no one gives a damn about your business.
Right.
So people who can reinvent and succeed, and both as individuals and as collectively, as teams, will always go far.
One of the startup founders, he was sharing with me, Monica, there are so many things that we do, but I know intrinsically our discussions are only around Meta, Google, and social media. And no one is able to think beyond that. वो वैनिटी मैट्रिक्स ने इतना सबको पकड़ लिया, झकड़ लिया है कि हम लोग कुछ अलग नहीं सोच पा रहे हैं, और वो अलग नहीं सोच पा रहे हैं तो अल्टीमेटली क्या हो रहा है, हम जो सारा मार्केटिंग स्पेंड है गूगल और मेटा को ही दे रहे हैं, वो सारा पैसा उधर जा रहा है. और इंट्रिंसिकली अगर हम ये पूरा इकोसिस्टम देखें हमारे इंडिया का, what is happening when I remember starting the Facebook page of one of my brands in 2009, everything was done organically, and now nothing happens organically, right? You have to run ads, then only your content gets pushed, right? So that means what your dependency on certain tools,
The large conglomerates, they own.
Absolutely. So where is your voice? Even if you make the killer content, unless and until you're feeding monies,
It won't get.
it won't get the traction.
Yeah.
So how do we kind of come out of this kind of over dependency on these tools? Can we think different? Can we think out of the box? Let it be a little more labor intensive. Let it be more, what do you say, deeper in context. But I want to come out of it because I want to create. मेरे पास 1000 लोग आए, लेकिन उनके साथ जो मेरा कनेक्ट हो, डीपर हो, उनके साथ मेरा जो कन्वर्जन, yes, because my conversion cycle will be very different, my LTVs will be very different vis-a-vis the kind of constant rejig that I need to do every month, where I have to just feed my my logic, my thinking as per the algos. So my dependencies on algos has become far too much, and which is something I'm not liking. So this is what intrinsically so many founders are sharing. And I think as marketers or as investors or as entrepreneurs, we need to think out of the box. There is the time for us to think out of the box, and I think it's the high time.
Absolutely. No. In fact, as again, give you an example. I mean, there's a startup which is now 2-3 years of business. It's called Travel Buddy. Now, their whole funda is that there are a lot of things that for travel you can go to a Make My Trip, etc. It's very complete. there are a lot of the smaller parts that are left unfulfilled, right?
Yes.
When you do your travel booking with the Make My Trip, you will, do your hotel booking with them. But the local transportation when you go to a small town.
Yes.
What about the local guide that you require to see a monument? What about, things like good recommendation for good eateries, right? For a lot of women travelers, and today there are a lot of solo women travelers, they want to meet, maybe go in groups of girls,
Yes.
right? Because that's what they want to see in a place different. So they try to build a community around the travel experience that was devoid of the ticket part of it, right? Some success, some challenges. Then they realized there was a nice, interesting niche that was not so catered very well, which was a lot of companies now have budgets for teams. He done a good job this quarter. You guys can go and spend 3 days in a homestay, right? So a group of 12, 15 people. Now, the HR department is not qualified to be kya karna hai, right? So they become the partner to a lot of the companies where they say, okay, we will plan these 2 to 3 trips, right? From your travel, some want to go to see a coffee estate, some want to go to see some kind of wildlife.
Yes.
But they customize it for the company. You also get a little bit of information on the company saying what and things that you want dialed up. A little bit of company ka story bhi karna hai, kya karna hai. So they become like partners for HR departments for reward travel. Many companies also want to do a little bit of now and then exceptional award. CEO does a monthly coffee talk, a fireside chat, and coffee talk. Town hall.
Yes.
Right? So town hall may they've created these special vouchers. Ki travel buddy ki voucher ho, you can go to spend 2 nights in Mussoorie. So they customize these little
Yes.
which is in the travel space, but not something that a big travel company can do. So they create these little niches in the travel space, right? So again, it's like finding small niches that are underserved and then building a business around it.
Yes.
And not that but the dependency on digital media is less. So I would say is to find your own customized niche and create it. And the other thing is that the company will do is don't spend all your money on, putting more money on Google, such like. They try and reach out to 2 or 3 new customers a week, right? So, and very often the way of that is recommendation is to get one of the existing customer, they give a recommendation or to give a quote or a, what we call a nice recommendation, which they use and amplify in their media, right? So if the guy says, we enjoyed working with Travel Buddy because they create these lovely curated travel experiences for our staff, they say, with your permission, can we, use it in an Instagram post? So they take the picture of this HR manager and say, so-and-so, who is employee relations manager at XYZ company, said this about us. That suddenly creates, because a lot of her friends call and say, boss, kya aat hai? Yeah, they're really good. But
Yes.
they get a lot of influence on that part. So they're using digital, but using it in a slightly more controllable way.
Yes.
Like what you said, and I've seen it myself, is that always search is a mug's game, right?
Yes.
Isne paise dalo, book SEO way. I mean, next month they'll come and say, that was good, but your competition has more.
Yes.
Now you do more.
Yes.
So then you just end up in that, kind of chakravyuh of spending.
Right.
And therefore, even if you're using Google, try and create small niches which can be different.
Yeah.
The other thing I see a lot of companies do is, have someone like a consultant who helps a lot of their CXOs put content out. So each of the CXO has his own reach, right? And every one of us is a medium in our own right, right? So, if, like for example, each of the CXO has something nice to say about the company, but also not to recognize that if a CXO is on media like Instagram, you can't just be talking about your company. About your own life.
Yes.
Right? That's when people will start following you. Right? So again, those kind of inputs, which, people in their 40s and 50s don't get effortless. Is investing a little bit in training people how to use social media. I think has great returns. But companies have to walk that extra mile.
You're right. I agree. So one last question, which I think all the youngsters would definitely have, is that how do I stay relevant today and after 5 years? And I think not only young marketers, I think it will be for everyone today. How do I stay relevant?
I would say, like I said, go outside of the, your role. Try and look at the real world and the real market. 2 is stay alive to reinvention, right? Everything that we learn, we have to unlearn as soon as like. A lot of what I learned in my marketing journey in the 90s is totally irrelevant, right? But you learn new skills, right? I tried to get deeper involved in performance marketing in the last 3 years. I knew nothing about it. Right? And I recognize that something I still don't know.
Yes.
But don't hesitate to try. Don't hesitate to use outside help. I also believe that a lot of marketers should try and understand as many of the media they're using firsthand. I know I have certain limitations to how I can use a Snapchat or Instagram, but at least I must try and understand the dynamics, not just as an outsider. It's easy to get an agency to give me a debrief, but until you get your hands dirty, you won't understand. And then thirdly, invest some time in educating your sponsors, whether it's the board of directors, whether it's the founders, whether it's the, whatever, senior managers, saying that these are some things that we need to watch out for. Otherwise, we will get into a trap. Yes, it is easy to say that make all my marketing attribution, but that is a little bit of a, like an example I gave you, right? Attribution has limitations. I can't look at the last click as the only attribution. Right? I cannot measure the whole journey, right? Where a guy saw a product or heard about a product in a podcast, where he first saw it on Reddit, where he first, discovered it by seeing a friend use it. I think those parts are not qualified. So until you tell people that marketing is a journey, it's not unlike sales that isi dukaan se kharida. I can't attribute 100%. Marketing may, there could be a whole lot of factors. I think that's another part I would say. And two is keep learning new things, right? The more you experience, the better marketer, businessman, and the better person you will be, right? Learning never stops. I would say every day, new opportunity. And set some learning goals, right? Learning is not something that happens to you, but you got to push yourself into a learning mode.
I think this entire conversation was quite insightful because I could learn so much myself. And I think the entire audience will also kind of comprehend it beautifully, because the way you have kind of shared these interesting anecdotes and the way you've tried to connect old school and new age marketing, it was quite insightful, brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing these insights and being here.
Thank you, Monica. I enjoyed our conversation. I think, like I said, learning is mutual. Enjoyed our chat, and all the very best.
Thank you.